We are talking about Creature. This is also known as Peter Benchley's Creature. Peter Benchley? He sounds familiar. Well, he should. He is the man who originally wrote the Jaws novel, which of course was then made into a Hollywood blockbuster, the first Hollywood blockbuster by Steven Spielberg. But he's actually done a couple of other aquatic, nautical kind of creature novels. This is one of them, Creature. There was also one called The Beast, which also turns into a movie/miniseries. But we are talking Creature. This one stars Craig T. Nelson and Kim Cattrall. And this was actually originally a two-part miniseries. It runs for about 240 minutes, although you can get a truncated movie version, so to speak, which runs about half the time. The story focuses on this kind of this government creature, basically. There's this government experiment, and they are kind of splicing genes initially between dolphins and sharks to create, weapons for the military. But they have decided to create a kind of human shark hybrid. Looks a little bit like King Shark from the DC universe, if you're familiar with that. Anyway, and this thing ultimately escapes and gets into the ocean and menaces this kind of coastal community. And then it's up to scientists, Craig T. Nelson and Kim Cattrall, who are both kind of marine biologists. Craig T. Nelson is kind of studying shark, etc. So he's a bit of a champion for their cause, so to speak. And obviously trying to kind of defeat this kind of aberration, this monster that is chowing down on the locals. So what do we think of Creature? Let's go with the positives first of all. Positives to this movie: the creature looks awesome. So as I've mentioned, he looks a lot like King Shark from DC. The actual practical effect that they use here, this creature, this kind of humanoid creature, looks great. He absolutely looks great, and he actually is pretty interesting in the fact that he actually kind of evolves, and we see some evidence of that where he's kind of like learning to kind of like breathe air, etc., rather than kind of through water. So it makes him quite the formidable opponent. I also like the way that he's able to pretty much swim and almost look like a shark underwater. So people think they're seeing a kind of maybe a little bit funky looking, but a regular shark rather than a kind of humanoid monster that he is. That was actually quite good. And I've really got to say, I really enjoyed the locales here. It really has a kind of a feel to it that really does seem like it's sort of shot on this kind of like quite sort of tropical location, really, and really benefits from that. And you do feel like you're kind of watching something out in the kind of like maybe an area where you don't live, and it kind of looks like that. The scenery and the kind of everything like that, and the cinematography kind of looks pretty decent here. For a kind of a TV miniseries, the budget looks like it's quite good. They've actually got a reasonable amount of kind of production value here. It kind of has almost a Stephen King feel to it, I would say. If you've seen a lot of the kind of the Stephen King sort of stuff, the kind of the government experimenting stuff like that, it's not as deep as a Stephen King novel. And then we go on to the negatives for this one. For me, the story here is pretty basic. I mean, to be honest with you, you can quite watch the shortened movie version, and I don't really feel you're missing much here. There's not a massively high body count in this series/film, so there's not really a lot happening, and the actual creature itself doesn't show itself in its full glory until really right at the end. So you are waiting quite a long time before you kind of see the creature in its full effects. And there are a couple of cheat shots here where we see footage of real sharks kind of like eating chum and stuff like that, and they've kind of like put it in to think, oh, that's the shark monster. It isn't. You can clearly see it's just a regular shark and stuff like that. So it's, even though I like some of the kind of the technical side of it in regards to production, there are a few shortcuts here and there. One of the things that bugged me about the most about this movie is the characters, the way they are written. So Craig T. Nelson's character is this kind of this shark enthusiast, for lack of a better. He's studying sharks to find out why they don't get cancer. But when people start getting killed and it's for suspected shark attacks, he absolutely will not believe that it's the great white that's living in the area. And I think you know, there's clearly been people who have been killed by an aquatic animal. It annoys me that he's so adamant that it wasn't the great white. He doesn't even consider the fact that it might be. That really irritated me because I think that's very irresponsible. And I think as a scientist, you should have to at least consider the fact, obviously, that would be the case. I mean, he finds evidence to say that it wouldn't be eventually, but initially, he's kind of quite adamant that, oh, no, it couldn't be the great white. Well, it's just like, at that point, you don't know that it's this monster, so, you know, you don't offer an alternative explanation. So that kind of bothered me. What also bothered me is the other peripheral characters here who really don't do very much. The whole story is really just focuses around Craig T. Nelson's character. Kim Cattrall, she doesn't really do anything. She is just there for the ride and kind of just there to be a female lead, but she really doesn't offer anything to the story itself. We have a character who is this kind of like this ex-military guy who you may know from Breaking Bad as the I've forgotten the name. The guy who owned the kind of the chicken restaurant. He's in here as well, and he's basically the kind of like the crazy old man here. You know, he is really the gate to finding out what happens. But no, all the characters are really just peripheral. They don't really do anything. They're just there to kind of like have more faces on screen and basically give a few more speaking lines for Craig T. Nelson's to kind of like unravel the plot. So this really is just his movie. I would say there's not, the other characters are so paper thin, they may as well not be there at all. But like I said, the actual, when you do see the creature itself, it looks really cool. And the actual kind of I like the way the twist where it's kind of evolving. That was good. But the movie or the TV series is quite unmemorable, and it makes you think that, you know, when you look at the original Jaws novel, that's one of the rarer instances where the film is a lot better than the novel itself, and there are changes that were made here, you know, to Jaws to make it into what it is today. And this one, obviously, based on, again, the Peter Benchley novel, maybe he struck gold, but there's not much depth, ultimately. Considering this is a movie about the deep, there's the irony. So it's okay. It's pretty much an average kind of TV movie. I don't think it's anything special. Again, I think it's a little bit dull at times. It just plods a little bit long. I don't think it's necessary just to watch the 240-minute version. I just don't think it's interesting. You're quite happy to watch the kind of the shortened version and kind of cut out, you know, a lot of the kind of like the talky bits, because there's really not that much in regards to creature action to begin with in this film. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.